Good evening, everyone. I wanted to first thank you for joining me this evening. My name is Serena, and I will be your webinar presenter for resume writing, tips to tools to building your resume. I compiled this PowerPoint this evening just with a little bit of feedback that I've gotten from sharing my resume with employers, with career professionals, and I hope that this evening you'll get a little bit of information that will make resume writing a little bit easier for you. Just to give you a little bit of history about me, I graduated from the University of Central Florida in interpersonal communication. I was a leader on campus. I've been an employer. I've been the employee. I've sat on numerous search committees, and I've seen, my fair share of resumes. So I've compiled some real-life experiences that I hope you will enjoy this evening and take back to reference to when you're writing your resume. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we're going to go over a few different things of why you will need a resume. You may need a resume for higher education purposes, scholarships, jobs, careers, references, recommendation letters. Regardless of what you may need your resume for this evening, just an all-around resume writing is a great practice to have and a great piece of paper to keep in your computer on hand so you can share with everyone. I like to say it's your personal portfolio on a piece of paper. Tonight we're going to be talking about two different types of resumes. The first one is chronological resume. Most common type of resume is this one. It's the standard for college students, professionals, and anyone in the process of a job search. This is your standard education, work experience, and accomplishments. These are listed in reverse chronological order, beginning with the most recent experiences and going back in time. Traditionally, the chronological resume is 1 to 2 pages in length. One page is strongly suggested for current college students and recent graduates. Is there an exception? Of course there is. The key words that I'm going to be using tonight, well, at least one of them is going to be relevancy. If this is relevant to the position you're applying for and you think it's a must-have on your resume, make sure that you keep it on your resume. Readers going to continue to read on if everything is relevant to them. So traditionally, yes, it is 1 page. But if you think that that is something that the reader is going to see that will hire you on the spot or at least give you a little bit more consideration, it's safe to keep it on there. Here's a sample chronological resume. You'll see here that everything is easy to read, clear, in reverse chronological order, their name, their bullets, their lines that they've used to organize everything, and it fits the bill of being 1 page in length. The other type of resume is a functional resume. This type of resume is best suited for those who have had a recent career change, if they have frequently changed employers, or if they had a gap in between their employment. This type of resume allows you to focus on the skill sets you have instead of the job titles, places, and times that you've spent at those job locations. Your skill list should be still organized. I recommend bulleting it. Stay away from the paragraph. It's a lot easier to get a reader to read bullets than it is to read a paragraph. Just a reminder, there is not a right or wrong way to write your resume. Just keep in mind that it should be professional yet easy to read. I like to say that these aren't rules. Let's just call them guidelines. A lot of the stuff that we're going to go over tonight, I'm sure you've heard time and time again. It really doesn't hurt to hear it again, and you might learn something that you did not know before. Make sure that your font size is no smaller than a 10-point font. Historically, Times New Roman was always the default font, but when Microsoft Office did their update, they actually changed their default font from Times New Roman to Calibri. So it has become more acceptable to see other fonts than Times New Roman. Regardless, make sure it's easy to read, nothing scripty, curvy. I recommend sticking to Calibri, Georgia, Arial, or even Times New Roman. Margins are also a great way to control your space. You can make them as narrow as ½ an inch on all sides. If you've never changed your margins before going on to a second page, I highly encourage you to play around with your margins. You can do so if you're in Windows Microsoft by going to Page Layout, Margins, and they have some that are customized for you already, or you can customize yourself. Try not to use pronouns such as I, me, or my on your resume sheet. You're going to want to use descriptions, but instead you're going to want to use a stronger wording choice. This is not necessary, but it couldn't hurt to print your resume and cover letter on quality paper. Linen paper, resume paper can be found in any office supply store, and try not to put it on any colored paper. Simplicity is key. Avoid clutter and unnecessary wording. If you're trying to say that you're responsible for promoting marketing events and publications, you could lose a few words here and there and just simply say promote marketing events and publications. Include quantitative material, promote weekly marketing events and quarterly publications, coordinate weekly management meetings for 10 managers. This allows the reader to actually visualize something when they see the use of quantitative material. Be consistent with fonts, spacing, bullets, and punctuation. If you're going to stick to bullets, stick to bullets. Dashes, stick to dashes. Fonts, if you're going to italicize, make sure it's standard throughout. Bolding, make sure it's consistent throughout. I say punctuation because that sometimes when the resume writer is writing their sentences, sometimes they'll leave periods at the end of their descriptions, and sometimes they'll leave them off. So just pick one or the other when writing. We've talked this evening about writing a few different resumes, one for higher education, some for careers. I highly recommend you create your own template instead of downloading one from the internet. Create one template that you can use and then start an e-portfolio either on your computer or on a USB drive. And this way you can customize your own resumes and tailor them to the specific job description, scholarship, or whatever you will need it for. All right, here's some basic information that we're going to get back into. Like I said, you have heard this stuff again. I know you will, but it really doesn't hurt. And this is where I can show some of the real-life examples that I've come across. Your contact information should be at the top of your resume. Make sure that info is current and accurate. I know a lot of my friends, when they were applying for jobs, they were, changing their current address to be the same as the business location. Never do that, especially if you're in Atlanta and you're applying for a job in San Francisco or somewhere out west. It will take you a little bit more time, and they may call and try to schedule an interview with you that week. So give yourself at least some time to get out there, but make sure that your information is current and accurate. I wouldn't go as to so far to make up an address in that city. Include your full name, address, phone number with area code, and email address. Include your current and permanent address if you're away at school. Make sure you have a recorded professional voicemail message on your cell or residence phone in your voice. No ringback tones or music in the background of your greeting. I say make sure that you have a recorded professional voicemail, because if I'm calling Stephanie Johnson and her voicemail is something standard like you have received the voicemail box of, and it doesn't say her name and it just gives me a bunch of numbers, I don't know for sure that that's Stephanie. She could have made mistype when she wrote down her phone number on her resume, or I could have mispunched it in. So just make sure that your voicemail is recorded. They have surveyed employers in the past. I believe this was in 2009, and they said that 7 out of 10 employers would not leave a voicemail for a candidate if they did not have a customized voicemail message. So be sure to record yourself a professional voicemail, have your neighbor, your roommate, your parents call, and test to see if it is something professional. No ringback tones or music in the background of your greeting. It's something really distracting, and as cool as technology has become, your first impression to your future employer does not want to be a Carrie Underwood song in the background of your phone. Also, make sure your email address is professional. I know you've heard this time and time again, but it doesn't hurt to hear it one more time because it is still made to the day. Here is a resume that I received this week from somebody who submitted an application for a customer service position. You can see that they put their date of birth on their resume. They also have an inappropriate email address. I shouldn't say inappropriate, I'm sorry. I should say unprofessional. And then their experience is not bulleted. You're more likely to get somebody to read your resume if they have bulleted their experience instead of summarizing it in a paragraph. Your objective statement. Keep your statement brief and make sure it's relevant to what you're using the resume for. Leave the objective off, especially if you're applying for a specific job, scholarship, or graduate school program. Most of the time, everyone applying for the same job has the same objective. So unless you're applying to a large company with different departments where you would have to state an objective, like I'm applying to be a part of ABC company and the XYZ department, it's safe to say that you can leave the objective off. This will give you some more room to highlight some of your recent accomplishments and skills. Education. List all institutions you've attended with location, dates of attendance. Include study abroad experience. Include your full degree title, major, concentration, and graduation date. Include academic honors and awards under this section or in a separate section at the bottom of your resume. Relevant coursework can be included as a subheading if upper-level courses completed pertains to the position. GPA, experts say to indicate your GPA if it is no lower than a 3.0. It's also acceptable to include your major GPA. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I chose to left my GPA off of my resume. If they wanted to know my GPA, I figured they would ask on the application. But I do know lots of people I've seen numerous times on resumes where, they are very proud of their GPA and they, put it on there. I was very proud of mine as a graduate. I just chose to leave it off. I had some other education experiences that I wanted to share on mine. So, like I said, it's up to you whether or not you want to include, your GPA or any other part of your resume. It's safe to leave, some stuff off, but if you choose to leave this on, you may do so as well. Your work experience. It is important to include all of your relevant work experience, including internships. If you're pressed for space, use the most relevant, most recent, and longest work experience. If you don't have a space for extracurricular activities on your resume, here's where you'd want to include the unpaid involvement that you have done that you can demonstrate the skills you have developed. List positions in reverse chronological order with company name and location, job title, and dates of employment. For each experience, compile a clear list that summarizes what you've contributed, and don't forget about quantifying your statements. Here is where you'd want to do so. It will be more clear and easier to read if you bullet these details. I think I've said that about 3 times now. Here's an example of some work experience that I've put together you can read over. The top 2 bullets are examples of work experience in the past, and the bottom 2 are the present. The coordinated vendor and client orders to improve department productivity. Prepared, coordinated, and taught team-building activities while establishing a professional environment for 50 participants. The current ones are maintain front desk area, office space, communication outlets, and interact with various clientele. Review internal budget and write summary reports for account managers. All right, what's left? Computer skills is a great thing to add to your resume. Be specific and list any skill that is applicable to the position you are seeking. Also include software and your level of competency. So if you want to say that you're proficient in Microsoft Office, which includes Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Access, Excel, etc., you specifically mention that you're proficient or familiar, whichever level of competency you have for all the software. If you're simply just proficient in Word, make sure that you include that. You don't want to get yourself into something that you are unaware of. Honors and awards. Academic awards from the university or outside organizations can be listed in a separate section after your work experience. Include scholarships, honor societies, and you may exclude dates for this section. Activities and leadership experience. Use the space on your resume to demonstrate what you have done outside the classroom or office. List activities and memberships in any office or positions held. If you did not mention community service or volunteer work and work experience, it could also be listed here. Languages. The job field is a global market, and companies are praising applicants who can speak more than 1 language. Be specific and let the employer know if you are fluent, proficient, or just simply conversational. Relevant coursework. I mentioned this previously under education. But if you are applying for a position that does not complement your personal education background, it's okay to include any coursework that you've completed that is relevant to the position you're applying for. To summarize all that all up, I know it sounds confusing, but for example, if you're a history major applying as a financial specialist, you may want to include any financial-related courses. Certifications and licensures. If you hold a current license that pertains to the position, it's very important to let your potential employer know. For example, if you've done any management training programs, leadership development, or financial training courses, or if you're a certified notary, these would be things that you'd want to include. Attention getters. Any professional affiliation, headers and footers are nice to see. Websites, personal websites or logos, these are attention getters that can be on the page somewhere small that may catch the attention of the reader. Here are 50 out of about 500 action words that I have that you could use to refresh your descriptions of your skill sets. This is a worksheet that I'd love to send you. If you would like more information on that, you can email me after the webinar. I'd be happy to send you some of these. We're going to take a look at a few examples of resumes that are successful. Here's one. You can see that it's very clear, easy to read, bolded, not too congested, and it, fits the one-page rule. The next resume is also a one-pager, and you can see that it's laid out a little differently, but it's still easy to read, still has really great descriptions, and is still one page. Here is a resume that I don't recommend you following as a template. There are a few mistakes that I would like to point out. The email address, one, is unprofessional. The objective, they're applying for a customer service position, and I mentioned to make sure your objective is relevant. Applying for a position as customer service, but writing your objective to be a dental hygienist is, a little different. The candidate wasted a lot of space, so you make sure you take up as much space as possible, especially with the work experience. I believe this was 2 or 3 pages, but a lot of space was wasted, not a lot of bullets or anything like that. The second arrow is for grammar. Make sure that all of your sentences are professional and you have double-checked your grammar. And then last but not least, a picture is definitely not needed on your resume. It's safe to leave it off. They should not ask for a picture, so you would not need to copy and paste one on there. These are resumes that we did receive this week where I work. So I just wanted to show y'all, that these are simple mistakes that have happened time again that, sometimes maybe you have to see it to realize that, you don't want to include some personal information, or too much information is never a good thing on a resume. If you haven't received a response from an employer after 48 hours, it is acceptable to contact them. Politely ask if the position is still open and offer to send your resume again if needed. Persistence shows commitment, but be careful. You don't want to come across as pushy. A cover letter. This is something sent with your resume, and I've outlined a simple letter of what exactly you may want to include in it. You're going to want to include your contact information, the date, the name of their contact, and then you can start your letter. In the first paragraph, you want to share a little bit about yourself. If you have met with them before, if you have a mutual contact or connection, let's say that you met them at a career fair, you definitely want to mention it here in the first paragraph. State what position you're pursuing and how you found out about it. If you can share an interesting fact that you learned about the company or industry, you could share it here. If you don't live in the area or business location, explain how you will intend to move there if you're available to visit for an interview. This goes back to if you don't live in the area, you don't necessarily have to lie about your current address. You simply can just note it in a cover letter. The second paragraph should cover your skills, your capabilities. Make sure this information is still relevant to the job you are seeking. Address any details that are perhaps not included in your resume that your potential employer should know. Include special knowledge or experiences that you have gained that would allow you to stand out. And get a little creative when writing your cover letter. You don't want every sentence to start with I. Conclude your cover letter with a few sentences that describe your desire for action and success. You should end with how you plan to follow up with the employer, make a reference to your resume, and thank the reader for their time and consideration. Include other contact information such as email and phone number is very helpful, and also include how you would like to be contacted. When addressing a cover letter to a female, use Miss or Doctor regardless of marital status. Keep the content concise and to the point. And if you're using email, send your resume and cover letter as an attachment. Then write a brief message with an introduction and a simple, couple of sentences, paragraph explaining what you are applying for. Here are some frequently asked questions that I came across when I've done this PowerPoint presentation in the past. If I had a part-time job in high school, should I put that on my resume? If it is relevant to the position or application, yes. If you acquired a skill set, yes. If you have more work experience since then, you could probably leave it off. If I don't have a lot of content for my resume, how can I still make it look professional? Spacing and formatting is what will make your resume stand out. We talked a little bit about the margins, and that's what I mean by formatting. Play around with the margins in your space font size. Also, a summary of qualifications is another way to demonstrate your skills if you don't have as much experience. We saw this in the first sample resume. Make sure you include your transferable skills such as organizing people and tasks, handling complaints, or working with precision. If you worked in a specific environment, include that in your summary of qualifications as well. For example, did you work in a fast-growing small business, a creative artistic environment, or competitive high-pressure culture? So if you worked in sales, be sure to include your sales history in your summary of qualifications. Do I always send a cover letter? Sending a cover letter can never hurt. Sending a cover letter can never hurt. Always personalize your cover letter to each specific company or organization, and double check you don't want to send a cover letter for a company ABC that has already been addressed to company DEF. So always double check and make sure that that cover letter is for that specific company or organization. And then proofread spelling and grammar, and remember to sign the letter. Etiquette. This is always something really important. We talked briefly about first impressions, but dressing professionally is also a great way to conquer that first impression. Ladies, closed-toed shoes, no cleavage, simple jewelry, and make sure your hair isn't hiding your beautiful face. Stocking our pantyhose if you're wearing a skirt or a dress. Gentlemen, closed-toed shoes, pants, slacks, collared shirt, and tie if it's an interview. You may want to consider a jacket or a sport coat. My rule of thumb is 3 pieces: skirt, blouse, and sweater, pants, shirt, and jacket, dress, sweater, and neck scarf, or a simple necklace is fine. You will see that the first impression is what the employer has of you. If you aren't dressed professionally and they do see you, they may tell you that position is already full. I've seen it done before, so be sure that your first impression, whether it's over the phone or in person, is the best. Email etiquette is important too. Proofread everything you send to an employer. Always include a subject. Don't forget your attachments. Respond to any email regarding your job status within a reasonable amount of time, usually 24 hours. If you have a signature, make sure it is appropriate. Handshaking has become quite the art as well. Don't be afraid to practice with a friend and have them critique your grip. Your handshake should be a firm grasp. All right, just remember that a successful resume is going to be relevant to the job description or objective. Your listed skills will be applicable to the job. clear and easy to read. Remember that your resume is you on a page, and how your employers or selection committees will gauge you and your capabilities. Some experts will say that someone will spend less than a minute, so maybe even 10 seconds, reading a resume. So I hope this evening you've gained some tips and tools to make your resume a little something extra. Like I said, feel free to email me with any questions, comments, or concerns. I'd love to send you any of the worksheets or sample resumes if you'd like to see them. My email address is Serena, S-A-R-E-E-N-A, .Helton, H-E-L-T-O-N, @gmail.com. Thanks so much for joining me this evening, and good luck with writing your resume.